As the Green Bay Packers get set to take on the LA Rams, we check in on the 2022 rookie class. What have the Packers gotten out of them this season? What can we expect moving forward? And how does that inform the choices that they're going to make this offseason, the needs that they have? All of that, plus our pal Lily Zhao joins us for another edition of Zhao You Doin. It all starts right now.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts. Wherever you find podcasts, you'll find Locked On Packers, the number one Packers podcast on the internet. And the show for fans who know what happened. They want to know why and how. Thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. And today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Bet Online. All of the information, the odds, everything you need to get your gambling done right at Bet Online, where the game starts. All right, as I mentioned, Lily Zhao is here today to talk with us about all the things related to this upcoming matchup with the Green Bay Packers and the LA Rams on Monday Night Football. And I'm actually going to ask her about this topic that we're going to hit to start the show. And the reason I want to start here is because when the Packers drafted the way that they did, remember, I did not like the first round. Did not like the first round, even really a little. A lot of people did. And regardless of the players, the positions, they liked trying to beef up that front seven. Just objectively speaking, it has not worked. They are not better. The run defense is still the worst in the league. In fact, it's worse than it was last year by some statistical measures. So that's not great. But basically everything else looks really good. Christian Watson is the rookie leader in receiving touchdowns, total touchdowns. Has a chance to lead the league in receiving touchdowns. Forget rookies. Lead the league. Zach Tom is the rookie leader in pass block efficiency. He is one of the best pass protecting players in football. In fact, the Packers have 3 offensive tackles in the top 31 of pass block grade. David Bakhtiari, Yosh Nijman, and Zach Tom. To get that from a day 3 offensive lineman, a 4th round rookie who played, yes, he played in the ACC, but he played at a school that is not exactly known for sending players with any sort of consistency to the NFL, to come in and be as successful as a pass blocker, to make his first start in a game where you didn't even know until the night before you were going to be playing for sure. He had a feeling. It's pretty remarkable. He looks like a starter somewhere for the Packers long term. Maybe it's not next year because David Bakhtiari could still be at left tackle, but maybe it is next year. Maybe it allows the Packers to say, here's the deal. David Bakhtiari trade. Maybe David Bakhtiari retires given all the stuff that's going on with his body. We don't know. But the Packers are in a really good position with Zach Tom. And I think if you were going to come into the season and pick a position where you go, they might need a tackle. I think a lot of people thought they needed a tackle coming into the 2022 NFL draft. And I kept saying, no, they don't. They have Elton Jenkins. Well, Elton Jenkins might not be a tackle. Now, he might be once he's healthy. But right now, he looks like his old self at guard. He's just a guard. I think right now he's just a guard because Yosh Nijman is playing really good ball at right tackle. Zach Tom is playing good ball at left tackle. Even if David Bakhtiari comes back, now you have a swing tackle in Zach Tom, or he could push Yosh Nijman with a little added strength at right tackle. The Packers are in pretty good position at that spot. I think the same is true at receiver, where the Packers felt like, man, there's a lot of stuff that they got to figure out. Well, Christian Watson looks like a star. Romeo Dobbs has star potential. They love what he brings. You got to figure out, okay, if Rodgers is back, maybe Cobb comes back, maybe he doesn't. What is Allen Lazard going to cost? Maybe you want to bring in another Sammy Watkins-like player, a veteran, and you roll with the young guys. It's a exciting group of pass catchers because of Dobbs and Watson. You still have the running backs. I think Aaron Jones' contract is reworkable. Okay, so now where are the other positions on offense where you need to add? Jordan Love is going to be back. We'll see about what Aaron Rodgers' situation is. If you heard our show yesterday, Aaron Rodgers told Mark Schlereth on the Fox broadcast that or during the pre-production meetings that he's pretty sure he's going to play next year. Doesn't know if it's going to be in Green Bay. We'll see about that. I don't think the Packers are going to take a quarterback in this draft. I'd be absolutely floored if they do. So they're going to take an offensive lineman at some point because they just do every year, and the guy's going to probably end up being good because they do every year. Really, the only offensive position, they really need that guy is tight end. Because Big Bob Tunyon, not under contract. Mercedes Lewis, same deal. And he said, he might keep playing for Matt LaFleur, but this might have been it. If it doesn't look like they can compete next year, I don't know why at this point in his career he would come back. Maybe he does, but still, he's a sixth offensive lineman for them. He doesn't really run routes. It'd be nice to have someone to stretch the middle of the field, to be a middle of the field target. Tight end is the one place on offense where they could use a lift. They could use some more Josiah DeGuara reps. I don't understand why he's not playing more, but we're not there every day in practice. We're not there to do the film study. We're not there to see how he interacts with coaches, teammates, all that stuff. But tight end is the place on offense where you go, yes, they need an upgrade. I also think they're going to draft a receiver, but they don't need to use a first-round pick on it now, or even a second or third-round pick. Maybe, it'd be nice. You if you want to add talent, always add talent. Always add talent at that spot. But it's not a need the same kind of way. Now on defense, this is where you start to see it because Devontae Wyatt can't get on the field for whatever reason. Learning how to be a professional, well, there were some attitude, character concerns coming out of Georgia about him. Maybe he figures it out. You hope he does because he's so physically gifted. Quay Walker does not look like an upgrade over Chris Barnes, a meaningful one certainly, now a speed upgrade for sure, but the coverage stuff is not outweighing the fact that he's a non-impact player in the run game by and large. I think overall is a net negative in the run game, frankly. You're not going to replace him. He's a first-round pick. He's a young kid. He's just figuring out how to play the position. Wasn't even a full-time starter at Georgia last year. So you're set at linebacker for the moment. You could take one day 3. You could sign a veteran just to have some more insurance. Chris Barnes is nice insurance. Defensive line is where you have some concerns. Because I think the emergence of Kingsley Enagbare, who leads rookies in pass rush win rate, according to Pro Football Focus. So the Packers have the rookie leader in touchdowns, the rookie leader in pass block efficiency, and the rookie leader in pass rush efficiency. Those are like the 3 most important positions that aren't quarterbacks: receiver, tackle, pass rusher. And the Packers nailed those picks. Those 3 guys could be starter level players. Next year, if he's starting instead of Preston Smith, you probably feel pretty good about this defense. And if Preston Smith is back, great. You have 3 guys you feel good about. That was the big question coming in. You'd still like to add another one, whether it's a veteran or a rookie, because Rashawn Gary's not going to be back to start the season, we assume. But you don't need to add a pass rusher if you don't want to. There are other places. Now, I think first round, especially the Packers right now picking in the top 15, if you can grab a pass rusher there, you do it because that's where you find the home run pass rushers. That's where you find the Rashawn Garys and the Brian Burnses of the world. So you could do that, but you don't have to because of what Enagbare is doing. What you have to do is draft some running mates for Kenny Clark, sign some running mates for Kenny Clark because they don't have anybody. Dean Lowry's not under contract. Devontae Wyatt can't get on the field. Jaron Reed's not under contract. So they have TJ Slayton and Kenny Clark and Devontae Wyatt. You don't have guys who can play that 3-4 defensive end spot. No, we don't know who the defensive coordinator is going to even be to try and identify the kinds of bodies they might be interested in, but they need bodies there. And so I am not going to be they should take a defensive lineman in the first round guy, because I still don't really believe that. But if you can find someone who can rush the passer from that spot in particular, you can do it in the first round, and I'm okay with it. Pass rushing defensive linemen, interior defenders, all day, do it. Or if you're a 3-4 team, that sort of elite level nose tackle, because you don't have a 3-4 defense if you don't have a nose tackle. You just don't. You just don't. So you have to figure out how to add there. And then at safety, because I think the cornerback position with Eric Stokes and Jair Alexander, you add Keyshawn Nixon, they have 3 starters that you probably feel pretty good about. We don't know anything that's going to happen at safety. Adrian Amos could be back. I doubt it. Darnell Savage is going to be back. Who is going to be the other safety there? Is Rudy Ford going to be back? Is it going to be Rudy Ford and Darnell Savage? Is Darnell Savage going to be given another opportunity? Maybe a new coach says, we think this is the guy. You still have to draft somebody. And I felt like they could have drafted someone last year, the year before. I don't know why they've treated that position the way that they have. I think that needs to change. Maybe you get a former safety as a defensive coordinator, like Jim Leonard. Maybe you get a former safeties coach, like Ejiro Evero, and you put a little resources there. They hired Joe Barry. They sign Devondre Campbell. They use a first-round pick on Quay Walker. Linebacker group still isn't very good. Part of that is Quay Walker's fault because he's a rookie, and rookies are usually bad. That's okay. That doesn't mean he's going to be a bad player. A lot of physical upside for him, and Devondre Campbell was an all-pro last year. He's been hurt this year and has not played to that same standard. Some of this defensively is just like regression to playing how we think they can play. Even if like Devondre Campbell, because he hasn't been on the field, he was always on the field in his previous stops. Just being out there and being sort of league average would be an upgrade over what we got, because what we saw was injuries. That's a bummer. So this rookie class, I think, has altered the short-term plans of this team and the trajectory of this team, because now they're looking at really not needing significant upgrades at the premium positions. Receiver, tackle, pass rush, at least on the edge. Interior, you could certainly use some more bodies there. And corner, they're pretty good at those spots. I think the Eric Stokes year 2 thing is some about scheme. You know, they have some square pegs and round holes here. And, you know, Jair Alexander and Eric Stokes don't thrive in the same kind of defense. Russell Douglas and Eric Stokes don't thrive in the same kind of defense. So you have to figure out how this is all going to work together. And that is really the biggest thing that the Packers have to figure out this off season. All right, we're going to get to Lily in just a little bit. Before we do that, today's episode brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy for you to focus on the candidates with just the right skills and experience, so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at LinkedIn Jobs/LockedOnNFL. That's LinkedIn Jobs/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. This episode brought to you by Audible. Audible is releasing a slate of new football podcasts we are sure you're going to love. That's why you'll be able to find a sneak peek for Think Like a Champion, available right now as a bonus episode on Locked On Presents. Think Like a Champion is a brand new podcast from Russell Wilson and Audible. Russ is a champion on the field, but off it, we rarely know the grind on the path to greatness. Each episode features interviews with Olympic medalists, NFL stars, and business leaders. Hosts swap stories and share proven mental techniques that have gotten the world's most elite performers across the finish line and beyond. Available for free on Audible or wherever you get podcasts. But also, head over to Locked On Presents for a sneak peek of Think Like a Champion, or catch the full series available anywhere you get podcasts, available everywhere now. Audible, get in the game. And thanks for making Locked On Packers your first listen. For your second listen, check out Locked On Sports Today. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get podcasts. Off a bye week, rested, maybe went to Sicily. No, just on White Lotus. I wish we went to Sicily. That would have been great. We have a football game to talk about this week. The Green Bay Packers and the LA Rams. They don't actually play this week. They play next week because they play on Monday night. Lily's out from Fox 6 in Milwaukee. Lily, looking rested. I hope you're feeling rested. Zhao You Doin?
Peter, I'm feeling rested. I kind of feel like it was a bye week for us. We didn't go anywhere, but, it wasn't the crazy Packer week. And I will say I need to get into White Lotus. I haven't watched anything. I've watched like 10 minutes of that show, but I'll get to it. Maybe.
So you didn't watch the first season either?
I watched maybe like 10 minutes of the first episode of the first season.
Okay.
And I was like, eh.
So like the least interesting part of it. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
You honestly don't need to watch season 1 to enjoy season 2. So if you find yourself like, I don't know if this is for me after an episode or two, you could just start season 2 and probably be fine. But unfortunately, the Packers can't do that with their season. They have to finish this season of TV, even though they're not that into it. We've all been there. It's like, you know what? I got to finish it, I guess. Like, I don't know. I got to finish it. When you look at where this team is now, I think there's a lot of discussion in the fan base about what is important now. And there is a portion of people who are going, look, the playoffs, fight for the playoffs no matter what. And then there's another portion who are saying, no, I want to see Jordan Love. They can't win the title this year, so who cares? Where do you fall in all of this? Like, how do you view what is important here the rest of the way?
I will say I kind of do view it like Brian Gutekunst does, right? Like, I don't think you're going into these games saying, oh, our playoff chances are so slim that we're going to be looking towards next year. I think there is still a feasible shot. Again, Aaron Rodgers said it on the Pat McAfee show. They need Seattle to lose on Thursday night. We'll see if that comes true. But if they do get a little bit of help and if they beat the Rams, there's some other games they could win, but they have to win out. Winning out is going to be difficult. I mean, it's going to be hard. But I don't think you're going to go into the last month or so of the season saying, oh, we've kind of given up and we're going to look towards the future. Although, again, I'm still of the same mindset of if they are going to be eliminated, that's when you can take the next step of saying, are we going to see Jordan Love in the interim? Are we going to see a big chunk of him? So I think of right now, it's still a mindset of, Aaron Rodgers, these guys are going to go out there and try to win on Monday night and see where where those playoff odds are. And they're a little bit higher. Maybe it's a good thing, but I'm still the mindset of win these games now. We'll look towards the future in a couple of weeks if that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, right. You can do both, right? You can say, okay, play as long as you can, and then it's time to do the Jordan Love thing. There are some people who are just going to be like, no, try and win every game. And that's sort of where Brian Gutekunst seemed to land. And then there are some people who are saying like, who cares? This team can't win the title. Let's just punt. I think you can do both. I think that's a false choice, right? Like you can find a way to balance these two things. You can also make the case that as we stand here right now, the only team left on their schedule that the Packers, we probably are pretty confident they're better than, is the Rams. Like the Lions already beat them. They look like they're playing better than Green Bay. The Vikings already beat them. Even if we think they're fraudulent, they played a lot better than Green Bay this year. And the Dolphins have definitely played better than them. That being said, they're favored against the Rams. If they beat the Rams and the Dolphins, they're going to be favored against the Vikings and the Lions. So this all seems pretty feasible. 538 says 58% chance if they win out that they make the playoffs. What would you put the odds at that they actually do that? Like, do you think that there's a decent chance? Doesn't have to be even better than 50-50. Like, what do you think the chances are?
Oh, man, I would love to say, yeah, they're going to win out and they're going to go 4-0. I just think it's going to be a really tough possibility to do so because, again, you're facing offenses that can score. And until the defense proves me wrong otherwise, it'll be hard for this Packers team to kind of win in a shootout because if it comes down to, I know the defense really, they dug their heels in against the Bears. They helped this Packers team win, but it's going to be tough for these next 4 games. I mean, if they're not careful, Baker Mayfield could find some groove in some touchdowns in Green Bay on Monday. So they got to be careful. I mean, it's not just a gimme game, in my opinion. And then, the rest of the opponents, I mean, they can certainly put points on the board. So I think now, they still have a chance. I think they showed some good things in Chicago, but to say that the odds are above like a 50-60% chance of them winning out probably is a little bit too high for me, but I'll remain optimistic, Peter.
Yeah, they shouldn't have beat the Raiders. We didn't think the Raiders were 5.5-point favorites in that game, and they did. And they probably should have beaten the Seahawks, by the way, with John Wolford, and didn't. So, sometimes the football gods even these things out. Let's talk about Romeo Dobbs, because he's back at practice. And they were very optimistic going into the bye that he was going to be ready. It sounded like he was pretty close to being ready for that Bears game, and they held him off sort of as a precaution. What kind of, how do you think they have to reorder the offense, if at all, to try and integrate him back into the offense now that Christian Watson is doing what he's doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is a good problem to have, right? I mean, this is the problem that they wanted
for
to
the
have.
First time all season, maybe.
Right. Where they were kind of like, we want to get both our rookies on the field at the same time. I think it's still a good shot that, of course, Alan Lazard, Randall Cobb, those guys are going to be kind of the top tier primary guys outside of Christian Watson. But I think you slowly reintegrate Romeo Dobbs. And I know he's had his ups and downs and drops and all that. But again, he's still a very young player who needs those reps. So I do think if he's going to be at 100% or close to 100% for this Rams game, I think they do really, really integrate him into that offense. I think we see a couple targets come his way because, again, what you want to build towards is a potential future 1-2 punch with those guys, him and Christian. And I think we'll hopefully see it on Monday night. And with how, Aaron Rodgers was throwing that football, I mean, I think this is a good shot that we're going to see a decent and a better passing attack against the Rams defense on Monday.
Yeah, I wonder about the thumb, because Aaron Rodgers said on the McAfee show, you mentioned that the thumb is feeling better, said the ribs are feeling better. And we're going to find out, right, just how big a problem was that thumb to some of the issues that they were having in the middle of the season. Like, if he comes out and doesn't play better, does that change the way that you view the injury?
Some, and I know he's not going to say the thumb was, the reason for all of his struggles this season. I just think whatever the mental block or whatever it was, the yips, call it whatever you want. I mean, you just didn't play good games. And of course the thumb played a factor into it, but I don't think it was the end all be all for his inaccuracy this season. So, I do think if he comes down to it and, he's not the typical Aaron Rodgers that we've seen coming off a bye week, maybe the thumb is a bigger deal and maybe it was kind of a bigger thing for him, but I think it'll be okay from, again, how he played in Chicago, gets a week off. He says it's feeling better. I don't think it's going to be deterrent for him in that offense. So I think we'll see a pretty good Aaron Rodgers on Monday.
Well, I think the Packers need a pretty good Aaron Rodgers on Monday because, as you said, this defense has really not lived up to the hype and all of the potential that certainly the praise that I heaped on it. I'm going, look, I think it's important though. And I want to ask you about this. We came into the season, a lot of people, myself included, were like, hey, this is a top 5 defense in terms of talent. And if they don't play up to that, then we need to be critical of them. First of all, did you buy into that same hype? And how they've played now change the way that you think we should have viewed them coming into the season, which is to say, like, is the talent just not as good as we thought?
I think it's kind of twofold, right? I think, they were playing so well and they were so highly regarded, I think, this offseason because the Packers offense wasn't as good as we all thought that they were going to be. So,
right.
It's how good we think the defense is. But to that extent, I do feel like, again, you have stars on your defense who are not performing at the level that we expected them to, be it by injury or whatnot. The drop-off has kind of been big with your key players. You lose a Rashawn Gary, that certainly doesn't help up front. Eric Stokes is also gone for the season. So you lose 2 starters that, provided valuable snaps. And then I don't know if it's the scheme. I don't know what it is. Just the execution just hasn't been there this season. And again, we talk about those third down calls, third down plays, be it a 3rd down and 1 or 3rd down and 15. It's like an automatic first down. So their money downs are not good at all either. And then you tack on the kind of drop off in terms of performance from everybody. And then we have kind of a leaky defense that's kind of been the entire season.
Yeah. Leaky at times feels like a generous description of what they've been. What is your assessment of this rookie class? Because at the top, you're sort of going, yeah, I kind of would have liked to see more from Quay Walker and Devontae Wyatt. But after that, I mean, I know Sean Ryan hasn't been able to get on the field, but Christian Watson all of a sudden looks awesome. Romeo Dobbs was the guy everyone was raving about to start the season. And now Zach Tom playing really well. I tweeted it out, one of 3 Packers offensive tackles in the top 31 of Pro Football Focus's pass block grades. And then Kingsley Enagbare leads rookie pass rushers in win rate. I don't know. Like I think there's a lot to like, and then some things to be disappointed about. What stands out to you about this rookie class?
I think it's just the amount of, playmakers in this class that we can see be steady contributors in the future. It's not like they're going to be a rookie year and done bust kind of player. I really do think that these foundational pieces, the Zach Toms, the Christians, the Romeos, the Kingsleys, the Quays, I mean, these guys can be really, really solid players.
Elite name class too. Really good names.
Elite name class for sure. I think these guys can be really fundamental good starters for this team for years to come. I think it's a very solid draft class. There are, again, some of like the Sean Ryans where we just haven't seen him. Don't know when we will.
Yeah, I was excited about that pick too. And he just I don't know, maybe he just can't play, or maybe the transition to guard has been too much for him as a rookie. Most rookies are bad. Like we need to be upfront about that.
Yeah, I mean, it takes time, right? I mean, he could get on the field next year and surprise, but again, just with the amount of names that we've already listed off, I mean, that's a really big chunk that's performed at a high level and they've gotten, starting reps. And, you add in the Kingsley Enagbare. I mean, this is a kid that I'm like, he's always in the backfield. I mean, and then Quay Walker's flashing his speed. Again, we talked about Devontae Wyatt wanting to see more out of him. I'm sure he'll eventually get there. But the amount of names that we're talking about that have been playing, big chunks of snaps for this team has been impressive. So I like this draft class, Peter. And like you mentioned, top names in that draft class.
Really, really good names. Even in a draft class where you have a guy with 2 first names, which you always want to be a little careful about that. Yeah. But a lot of really good names in this one. How do you think? So I was trying to do this exercise because I haven't dipped my toes fully in the mock draft stuff yet, but I've walked to the water. You know what I mean? Like I haven't taken my shoes off. I haven't quite got, but I've taken steps to get there, and I'm trying to stack up the needs of this team. And you go into the season, you go, well, they definitely need receiver. Well, looks like they have 2 that could be really, really good. Well, they probably need a pass rusher. Well, Kingsley Enagbare all of a sudden popping, like that changes it. Well, they probably need a tackle. Well, Zach Tom can be a starter. Like maybe they have 2.5, 3 guys that they feel really good about, depending on what happens with David Bakhtiari. So as we head into, head toward the offseason, we're not into the offseason. What are the positions where you go, okay, in the offseason, if this team can add to this place and this place, maybe they can get back to where we had expectations for them before the year?
Ooh, great question. I don't think it ever hurts to not add another receiver. I mean, this has kind of been the plight for years and years and years. Add a first.
No one tell Ted Thompson.
Yeah. So it never hurts to add another receiver. And if Christian and Romeo are going to be kind of your top 2 guys, and you still have Allen and whoever else in that receiver class, I mean, never hurts to add a first round talent. I think that's a way you can go. I mean, they're always going to get an offensive lineman, be it a tackle, guard, whatever. That's going to be a given. I think maybe at the safety position, you get a safety back there. I think linebacker is still kind of a need for them as well, outside of how Devondre has done and Quay. I think linebacker safety would be some things to look at. But like you mentioned, I would say Kingsley Enagbare has really kind of been, add him and Rashawn.
Revelation.
And it certainly helps that their pressing need right now is not at that tackle or at the pass rusher spot. So I would say linebacker, safety, and then maybe tight end.
I think that's a low key one because Big Bob Tunyon not under contract. Josiah DeGuara has not found a home in this offense, and Mercedes Lewis is gonna be collecting retirement benefits pretty soon. So like I don't know what to make of that. It seems to be that it's all the non-premium positions, which is a good position to be in: tight end, linebacker, safety, defensive line, probably, right? So I think that's a good position to be in, but we'll see moving forward. All right, Lily, we will be back next week, hopefully talking about a Packers win, that they're still in the playoff race, talking about a Christmas Day game with the Miami Dolphins. We will talk to you next week. Thanks, Lily.
Thanks, Peter.
All right, thanks to Lily for joining the show. Always great to talk to her. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at BetOnline, your number 1 source for all of your betting info, stats, news, analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from the pro to college bowl season to basketball to World Cup. We've got it all at BetOnline. If you love sports, you've got to go to Bet Online, the fastest and easiest way to get all of your betting info. Head to the website or use your mobile device to learn more. Bet Online, where the game starts. And thanks for making Locked On Packers your first listen. For your next listen, check out Locked On Sports Today. The biggest stories in sports, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get podcasts. All right, back tomorrow. Crossover Thursday, Rams, Packers. Even though we have a Monday night game, we're still going to do a crossover Thursday, and then working on an interview for Friday. We got plenty more to do. I don't know yet if we're going to have a Friday show, maybe a quick Friday show, just to sort of get set for Monday night. And then we'll have our Monday live show that'll be in your podcast feed on Tuesday. It'll be up on YouTube. We'll be live after the game, so it'll be on YouTube right away. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter at Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts. Wherever you find podcasts, you will find Locked On Packers. And anytime you want to come hang out with us live, you can do that on the Locked On Packers YouTube page to stay Locked On Packers.